Transportation Improvement District Organizational Meeting, Wednesday, October 25th, 1 p.m. And we'll start out, roll call of attendance. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Malloy.
Here.
Mr. Coggins.
Here.
Mrs. Yoder.
Here.
Mr. Kinnick.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Now, we do not, as of yet, have the appointee from Speaker Stevens. I've talked to Representative Loychek about it. I've talked to Representative Stevens' office. The person that was recommended by Mr. Loychek to Mr. Stevens was Chuck George, and he had called and asked to be the appointee. He called me after he heard our meeting when we had this, and Representative Loychek was in agreement, and it seemed like Speaker Stevens is in agreement also, but they just haven't done it yet, so we'll have to follow up on that to see when he plans on doing that, so we can have the full board. That is a non-voting member position that is appointed by the Speaker of the House. First order of business we have here is election of officers. I don't know about officers per se, but we need a chairman of this body.
I don't have
Mr. Kinnick has some experience in that, but traditionally, the other kids that I've seen across the state, the county engineer was kind of the man that called the shots and chaired the meeting, and I would nominate and hope that Randy would chair.
I'm gonna decline that,
You're gonna decline?
with all due respect. I have a lot on my plate, my calendar, so I'm not gonna be offended who runs the meeting.
Mr. Kinnick, with your experience?
I think I'll gladly help, but I think being on both, I think it'd be only fair to be somebody else. I would nominate possibly Nick to be that. I'm on both, so I don't think it's fair to be the chairperson of one and not the other.
Okay. Nick, you accept?
Yeah, I think we're running out of candidates.
I
have to.
Right ahead, you pencil down right here.
Already had you penciled in. Okay, so I'll second that. All in favor of Nick being the chairman?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Commissioner Malloy,
Yes.
the Ohio Revised Code on this, section 5540.02, letter E, the voting members of the board shall elect from the entire board membership a chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary treasurer. So we are required by the Ohio Revised Code to have those three offices.
Okay. Martha, would you be secretary treasurer?
I'm willing to.
Is that a nomination?
That's a nomination.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now we're looking for vice chair? Commissioner Malloy? I'll nominate Commissioner Malloy for vice chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain.
And you read secretary treasurer as one position, or is that two?
It's one hyphenated.
One hyphenated, okay.
Very
So
good.
then, we don't need another election, so we'll move on to agenda item 3 to, establish regular meetings. Obviously, no matter what, we can always have ad hoc meetings with projects coming down the pipeline or pending applications, but, I think it would, in my opinion, it would behoove us to have regularly, maybe quarterly meetings.
That's what, Mahoney County does.
County does?
And if they're getting ready to submit something, one of the deadlines, they might meet, have a special meeting just to get their act together.
Being quarterly meetings, is there any day of the week that is particularly better for people, or, a certain month that's not good? Beginning of the month is really loaded, or end of the month's really loaded? Does anybody have a personal preference for their offices? I do not.
I like Wednesdays after our regular meeting, being that
Mhm.
Martha and I are definitely in the building that day, all day. If we do the afternoons, hopefully that would make it
Yeah, that's
easier
easier
for
for me.
both of you.
So Wednesday at 2 p.m., say, does that work?
Sure.
And then, you wanna do like the, I think, for me personally, the planning commission, we have our Tax and Zoning Committee the first week of the month. The commission meeting the second week of the month. Preferably, I would go the third week, if that's okay with everybody.
Fine with me.
So then are you looking at, for the next one as a regular meeting, January 17th?
I would think we need, I would
If you
think,
want one before
Well,
that, I understand, or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if we establish regular meetings, that would be the first regular meeting, but my understanding is we have a deadline we need to meet, so we're
Right.
probably gonna have more between now and then.
So I believe they, don't quote me on this, I think they went to two submittals. One's the deadline is the 31st of this month, which is past for us submitting, which is fine. I think the other one is in March. It used to be a May submittal, so I bet it's the end of March, to have something prepared, if we are ready to submit for project funding. So I think if you back up, maybe you should have something, have one of our regular meetings, maybe in December, then we go March. Go March for submittal, or go November and then go February, something like that. In anticipation of having a project available.
So if November 15th,
In
would-
that winter conference, or,
no.
I apologize.
And if we follow that pattern, the third week of December will be the 20th, and everybody's probably gonna be looking at their holiday calendar, so, or
I
if we
can
say
meet
this
on the
is our,
20th at 2 o'clock, I mean, figure you'll just have the, appetizers out afterwards or something for us, Nick, you're the chair.
I mean, if that's okay with everybody else, I will be here. Does anybody have a problem with that? So our first regularly scheduled meeting after this one will be December 20th, Wednesday, December 20th at 2 p.m. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Do you want a motion for that, or do you want a motion to set them all for the next year, for the four quarterly meetings?
4 quarterly meetings, I think would be better, yeah.
So the first one you would have would be December 20th, the next one would be March 20th?
Yeah.
Somebody will send those out as calendar invites. Yeah,
June 19th?
Is that technically Juneteenth? We would not have,
No, we would not, so
we
we
would
would have
be
to,
off that day,
we could put it to the 26th then.
26th due to holiday.
Yeah. And September 18th.
fair enough. We said at 2 o'clock, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Someone want to make a motion then?
make a motion that we accept the dates as stated.
Second,
Second it?
Jim? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the administration, Jim, I know, as you said, you sit on Mahoning County's. How do they handle, obviously, their meeting minutes? Do they have somebody that they have come in and do that? Do
No,
have
they
staff?
would
Do they
have the secretary in there, does the meeting minutes, sends them out probably a week before for review, then they approve them at the next meeting. Theirs only last about 30 minutes total, a lot of them are virtual. I would also suggest, that with us meeting in December, we start thinking of projects that could be eligible for funding, because then we'll have to put an application together, which is pretty basic. We'll also involve Christina Wagner, who is, runs the TIDs for the state of Ohio.
She
Like-
sent me an email this morning,
Okay,
and we need to, fill out our ODOT TID registration form after we complete our meeting today. She said she was aware we had our meeting today, and, I can forward that over to you or Martha to fill that out.
Please, yeah. I'll, if you forward that to me, I'll handle that.
she's easy to work with too, and, I think when we do submit a project, we ask her to come out and look at it with us. Yeah, get her involved. I can assist with that.
And I'll keep,
Lisa, we've already submitted the certified copy of our resolution to her.
Yeah.
for her. So all she's waiting for now is this application for us to complete today, after we, conduct today's business.
And then when they do submit grant applications, do they seek consultant help, lawyer help?
No. They have not.
They have not. Who normally handles that?
Bob Durbin does.
Bob Durbin.
I would encourage you to just use him for help, if we need any help putting something together.
Other administration, I believe as a appointed board, we would need bylaws.
Yes.
As Mahoning's already established, how would everybody feel about reaching out to their TID and getting their bylaws and looking at those to review for possible, adoption at our next regularly scheduled meeting?
That's fine, I think the clerk already has them,
Oh, okay,
because we submitted them in our initial request.
okay.
I think we have them also from Warren County, where the gentleman that kinda created a lot of the TIDs in the state, do it. I have those also.
So if you want, I can gather those two examples. I'll get Lisa, and if Lisa doesn't have it, I'll reach out to Moni. And I'll get what, Commissioner Roy had, and I'll just distribute that via email to everybody so that before next meeting, people can.
Sure, and I know we have it if you don't
Okay.
need to reach out to Mahoning, but
Okay.
we have already converted them over to Trumbull County and so.
Oh, you have that, okay.
Perfect.
If you wanna, email me that, and then
Okay.
I can email it to the group, so everybody has it, and we can kind of put it as part of the agenda.
Sure.
All right, and we'll make sure that that's on the agenda for next, meeting. I'll do the registration, Martha will distribute bylaws, they'll be reviewed. Unless anybody has another comment for the registration, I believe that would finish that agenda item. Anybody else?
Just as a follow-up, to what Jim was saying, you know, I know things aren't always the same in each county or how they operate. And did anyone touch base with the prosecutor's office on how this is a separate body altogether from the county with its own powers, duties, and authority? And so if there are legal questions, the prosecutor is not gonna assist.
And that's what was recommended to me from the prosecutor, that we hire an attorney, that the TID have their own counsel.
Correct. Own counsel, that might mean.
But upon Mr. Knape's recommendation, we can,
I'm not aware of Mahoney County doing that, but, you know, I'm not aware of that. I didn't think they did hire counsel, but
we
Please,
can check
we
with
can
that, we'll
double
double check with that.
But their counsel, I'm assuming, because Pat has in-house counsel, physically in-house from the prosecutor, that there's one assistant prosecutor assigned to the engineer's office, and we're a little
Correct.
different here.
Correct.
So,
So, I agree, he probably reviewed that.
yeah. So that's gonna bring up the funding issue, you know, paying for consultant issue, maybe some seed money, something like that.
Yeah. I guess that will bring up another, do we need to solicit seed money? Or, well, I guess before we get ahead of ourselves, touch base with the prosecutor, make sure that they did recommend getting legal counsel, so.
And then I got 3 names from the chamber, from Shea, who presented what other counties do. And he had 3 names of different people that specialize in TID.
And I'm not opposed if we need clarification from Bill, Danzo at the prosecutor's office. I'm not opposed if we need to ask him for clarification if any county monies can be, I should say resources can be utilized for the benefit of this board.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the question. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying Bill said, as far as legal advice, they will not provide it to this body. I'm not sure how far that trickles down into my funds or funds through the auditor's office or anything else. So I don't know if you'll handle the accounting through the auditor's office. I don't know the answer to that. Do you know if, does Mahoning County run it right through the auditor?
I believe so.
Okay,
Ralph's on the board.
okay.
Right, yeah, Ralph had reached out to me, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can, meeting with the clarification when I talk. Was involved.
That, and then if you can check with Ralph and Mahoney on
Mhm.
the funding structure.
Okay.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel if they
No.
already have.
I'm just not
That is-
sure,
Wait,
we're reinventing the wheel, I'm not sure if they built it right to begin with. I don't know the answer to that. So
Yeah.
just because Mahoning County does it,
Well, Jim
I'm
says
not
they are
sure.
functioning well, and he's
So-
been on it for how many years, or how long
It's,
they have that?
I think 3 years now.
Mhm.
And they've
Three for
got
three.
grant money, and they've
Mhm.
done everything, so.
So, just to follow up, is Auditor Yoder will follow up with the prosecutor's office for the clarification whether we can use county resources. And depending on that answer, would determine whether we can use the auditor's office to do the accounting or we need others. And if we can use the auditor's office, she will also follow up with Ralph Meacham, the auditor at Mahoning County.
Does Ashtabula have it too?
I don't think so.
And,
I think it's like, Dan, I think it's like 54 of the 88 counties now, no?
I believe
Something
it's
like that.
54, 52.
53, I was told.
Mhm.
you, Commissioner, you had spoken, you said the prosecutor recommended hiring counsel, was that because they won't offer counsel for us, or that's just their preferred?
No, that's what I took it as, they don't counsel us, we have to find our independent counsel with questions regarding this.
And we can waive privilege on that opinion that he had written to the board regarding counsel. We could share that with the TID if that's okay with the board.
Sure.
Well, if that's the case, we need to move on possibly putting together an RFP to those 3 legal, professionals provided, or that work with TIDs, or just putting out an RFP in general. See what kind of services we can be provided and what the cost
We
will
don't do
be.
transportation.
I think that's gonna
Hinge on
raise
the
a question about who's funding it,
Mhm.
who's gonna pay for the legal news and
Get that,
some of that.
So we need the clarification from
We
the,
do need,
we
from
gotta
the
get,
county resources first
yeah,
before
we
we
gotta
can.
get the horse taken care of before.
Mhm.
And to,
Yes, Commissioner.
I wanted to also include any question for an opinion should reference that segregation of duties. I know that there is some controversy in the audit findings about what the engineer was doing, so we just need to look at that totally. Make sure that not just funds, but very specific.
But performance and every, yes,
Correct.
yeah, and any equipment or something like that.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Well, not so much equipment, the services,
well, yeah,
providing estimates, plans, anything of that,
Work out.
anything of that nature,
Work.
work product.
And employees working,
Hmm.
which includes Lisa here today.
all right.
Commissioner Malloy, you had raised the question about
They do have one,
They do.
okay, perfect, that's another
Another
resource we can reach out to
absolutely.
then also.
But it's
Mhm.
really heavy in the northern part of the state, I see that.
Well, I think at this point, we need to make sure we get that clarification on the county resources before we do anything else with RFP. I do know part of that, so moving on to the next item is project nominations for a project list. I do know that registration and part of establishing a TIF requires that we have a certain number of projects for, there's 2 options for, a certain dollar amounts. And, you know, at this point, I know of a couple projects, and I would lean more on the, county engineer for any other transportation projects or Eastgate for any other transportation projects. and a roundabout dollar figure, that those would cost us so that we can complete that registration after this meeting.
The engineer and I have talked about Mines Road has been what kind of created this in the first place, I think, was Randy's recommendation that we form a TID based on inquiries we had with traffic, getting in and out of the Eastwood Mall in a turning lane onto Route 46. So that's kind of I think, at the forefront of things. Randy, you had one or two other ones you were
We
looking at?
developed, yeah, we presented, I think, the board with a list. I believe we did. Because I think, some point, we were required to submit a need of $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
Then I read 15 million, then I heard we didn't have to submit it all. But we do have a listing of at least $10 million worth of projects.
Mhm. So there is, when I looked at the registration, there's two types, or two different segments. One's 10 million, one's 15 million. So if you could provide that list, that would help with the registration today. And then if you wouldn't mind sharing it with the rest of the TID members, and we could, build upon that. Any other, economic projects or transportation projects that would tie into this. I would imagine that most of them are probably covered, because when we need transportation, we do call. But, or transportation improvements, we do call, but, for any economic projects, but.
Yeah, I mean, the scoring criteria focuses on economic development. Part of your
Mhm.
application, you have to say, job creation, workers.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that,
Yes.
after speaking to Christine too and learning more about the ranking, they also look favorably upon, JEDs. So when they have more collaboration among different areas, I think that that's something that will help the project to score highly, and there might have been one of them that was in the area.
Thank you. Other than the project list, we'll move on to see, if anybody else would like to raise any other business or discussion that we may have forgotten on this organizational agenda.
And I'd just go back to the project list. I know there was discussion this morning about that access road from 44 to the BDM
Mhm.
property, so, that may or may not line up, but it should be under some type of consideration.
We had it on the list.
It's on your list, sorry, I don't know what's on your list, okay.
Another one, and it might be premature, is the Mercy Health. I know that estimate,
Mhm.
after talking to
It was on the
Gary
list,
Schaefer, was
correct.
1.2 million, okay,
Correct.
Mhm.
that's good.
Larchmont was on the list.
Okay,
Mercy Educational was on the
Our
list.
work's done.
Yeah.
The access was on the list.
good.
Mines Road was on the list. And I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my.
Jim, what type of money has Mahoney County got on that? Do they prioritize their list and
Well, I think that their focus really, they were getting 250,000, I think, three
per,
times.
250,000?
Per project, and you get
Okay.
one, they get one a year, they've gotten one a year. The projects, I was trying to think what they did smaller projects, they did more of a Mines Road project, it was like 800,000 to build, and they got 250 for some work. I think they had a couple of those, turn lanes, and some access roads into some businesses, really in the North Jackson, area out there on Mahoning Avenue. Hit on two of those, but yeah, they were smaller projects, this was just like, there's a stack of money, this is like the last stack to come in and help make this successful. It might be wise, and we might even reach out and ask, on December 20th, that'd be harder for Christina, maybe she can come in just to be like, just come in and talk to us a little bit about what types of projects she sees, and just, I think, just get to know us all. I mean, I know her, I should say that, get to know everybody.
We were just on a panel with her.
I know, and she was right, I, was on the other side of a wall at ODOT for about 3 or 4 years, so I know her well.
That helps too.
Yeah, yeah.
Jim, do you know when Mahoney County's next meeting is?
I do, it is Monday,
Monday?
it is this
The
Monday.
30th.
I'm out of town, so I'm gonna do it virtually, but, yeah, it's Monday at, 10 o'clock. Nick, if you probably could get, they'll let you sit in if you want
That's
to
what I'm kinda thinking is,
Yeah.
Well,
You can do it
and,
virtually.
some are all of us ought to sit in just
If
to,
you like, I could reach out to Bob or whatever you want. I'm going out of town for work, but, I'll be back Wednesday. But I'll probably try to take that call virtually.
There's a virtual option,
There's a virtual option.
yeah, that would be nice to see what they're doing, what
Yeah,
they're talking about.
it'll be quick too.
I have to interject, when it comes to virtual meetings, and if it's a governmental entity, which I don't know, I think that this would be, we're not allowed to do virtual meetings for our prosecutors. So I would make sure that it is compliant.
Yeah, I think, yes, Commissioner, I think if we're gonna consider anything for a vote, any voting member needs to be in person set for their vote to
Right, for us to
be
sit in and
considered
listen
for
on their
attendance.
meeting,
Or for attendance
Would
to
be
be
no-
counted.
Yeah, for attendance to be counted, yes. Thank you. Any other discussion points?
So I'll reach out to Bob, ask if he minds I forward the invitation to the, group. And then, I'm sure he's gonna say no problem, but then,
Martha, can you reach out to Bill to find out when their next meeting is?
Sure.
I'm surprised, I didn't know they had one, but Eastgate does do transportation up there, so we don't even talk roadway projects with Ashtabula.
What's your top priority with this, Randy? With the project?
Top priority project. I don't know if there's gonna be a top priority. I think we have to look at the scoring, matrix. There's 3 different categories that are weighted, and then start to look at it, from that perspective. And a lot of it has to do with the funding, as Jim had mentioned, and the other collaborations the Commissioner had mentioned, and then see which project gives us the best opportunity. But we can submit, I believe, as many as we want, and they're just gonna fall wherever they fall, so.
But they'll just grant us one.
Correct. That's my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.